What's up everybody, it's Nick Taylor with the Crafty Gents, and today we're introducing to you our new show. It's our homebrewing series. You asked for it, we're giving it to you, and we're super excited about it. We're gonna be delivering tasty recipes to you, and we're gonna be going from start to finish. You can see every part of the process. We're gonna give you a little behind the scenes look of what goes on, and we're gonna post the recipe on our website. So the style of beer that we're gonna be brewing today is New England style IPA, and we're gonna call it 30 is the new 20. I'm gonna run through the ingredients real quick, but I'm gonna give you a little more detailed breakdown of why we're using the ingredients that we are as we go through that process. So our grain bill is gonna look like this. It's a 5-gallon batch in our Brewzilla. So for the grain bill, we're gonna be using 10.5 pounds of touro pale malt and 1.5 pounds of flaked wheat. Again, I'm gonna go into a little more detail why we're doing that, but for right now, that's what we got. Then, we got hops exclusively from Valley Farms in Port Hope. Great group of people out there. The Bickle Farm has Valley hops, and they're excellent. So we're gonna be using Arthur hops and Mackinac. We're not gonna be adding any throughout the boil. We're gonna add Arthur as soon as the flame's out at 0 minutes, and then we're gonna dry hop with Mackinac a little bit later. And we're gonna be adding 3 ounces of each of those. Then we're gonna be using also, local to Ontario, Escarpment Labs for our yeast. This is a Vermont ale. It's not something that I've ever used, not a yeast that I've ever used. I have used Escarpment before, and they're great. Used their California ale and their American ale. This one's gonna give a little bit of fruity esters, accentuate stone fruit and citrus character, and it's gonna get like help highlight that smooth body and also add to that. So again, I'll go into a little more detail of why we're going with that one as we go through. But those are the ingredients that we're gonna use, and I'm really excited for this beer. I should also mention that we use a Brewzilla. It's a really great piece of equipment. I love it. Being in Canada, I love being able to brew in my kitchen in January and not to go in the frigid cold. So what we're gonna do first, what you would typically do is you would add water to your system and then heat it up to the desired level. Or you heat up the water and then you add to your system. Just depends on what system you have. For me, I have this, so I added 5 gallons to this system, and I've heated it up to 152, and we're ready to mash in right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our 10.5 pounds of pale malt and our 1.5 pounds of flaked wheat, and we're gonna get mashing, and then we're gonna go through that. First, we're gonna add our 10.5 pounds of touro pale malt. This is gonna be our base malt for our beer style, which is pretty common. Pale malt, Pilsner malt, they're generally the base malt for these style of beers. All right, so what you wanna do is recirculate this. Kind of soak all these. And this is the pale malt here, so it's just pale malt. I haven't added the yeast or the wheat yet, the flaked wheat. We're gonna add it in just a second here. And we're gonna mash for 60 minutes. So hopefully convert all these sugars, or extract all these sugars. Next, we're gonna add flaked wheat. We're just adding 1.5 pounds, which gives it about 12.5% to the total grain bill. And that's gonna add a bit of smoothness. It's also gonna give it a bit of this protein haze, which is visually appealing for me. I really like to see that, but it's also adds a little bit of something that I can't quite put a name on. After I add all the grain, I'm gonna make sure I give this a real good stir to get good interaction between the water and the grain. Make sure I get like a lot of extraction of all that sugary goodness. After that initial stir, I'm gonna put the lid on this thing, and then I'm gonna come back to it every 10 or 15 minutes to give it another stir, make sure everything's going well, and make sure it's holding temperature. We're gonna mash for 1 hour at 152 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've set the timer for 60 minutes, and I'm just gonna give it a stir every now and then. So I'm gonna let it set temperature for 60 minutes, but I'm gonna stir it intermittently. Just to kind of make sure nothing's all clumped together and everything's got some good surface area to interact with the hot water. When I added the grain to my equipment here, the temperature went from 152 to 149. So I only have like 3 degrees Fahrenheit loss, which isn't too bad. And being that I'm using this system, it's gonna bump right back up pretty quickly. Now, if you're using like another system, like the classic homebrew thermos system, you're never gonna be able to get that temperature back. So it's important to check out what your strike temperature should be, and then based on what you want your mash temperature to be. And that's gonna be different for every system. So just try to trial and error with your own system and go from there. You're gonna wanna heat up around 5 gallons of water on the stove. You're gonna try to get it to 168 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna use this later to sparge. We'll go into that when we get there. So now our mash is done. It's been an hour. I'm just kinda like trying to, you know, stir this up a little bit more, but I'm gonna pull this out and then we're gonna start sparging as we let the water drain from the grains. So the mash is done. We pulled out the grains. I'm gonna add this on top. This is gonna be, it's gonna help me sparge a bit. I've actually never done this particular thing with this. I usually just pour water over top of the grains and let it drain, but I think this will help me with like the water distribution a little bit more. This came with the Brewzilla. Seems like a really cool thing. I've never used it, so now is as good a time as ever. I'm just gonna throw it on top. Like so, and I got my sparge water here. It's 168 degrees. That's the temperature that we're gonna sparge at. Any higher than that, you're gonna get, you're gonna extract some like off flavors from the mash, some tannins, things like that. So you don't wanna go any higher than 170. And look at that, this thing ain't working. But I think it's, if I hold it, it'll be fine. I'm just gonna pour it over. And I'm going to sparge until I get to 6.5 gallons in the kettle. I think we're at about 3.5, 4 right now. So we're just gonna keep doing this until we get up to our boil volume, which is 6.5 gallons. All right, so we're up at 6.5 gallons. Now I'm just gonna take this out. From here, I'm basically just gonna take this, put it in this other kettle that I have. And I'm gonna dispose of it accordingly. But you see this is nice. This is basically what will be, well, right now it's our sweet wort. So think about the word wart, but it's pronounced wort, like shirt, but not with the SH, just with the W. Anyway, so this is basically loaded with sugars from our grain, and then we're about to bring it to a boil. I'm gonna filter it a bit using my homemade filter setup, and then as it's heating up, and then when we get it boiling, we're gonna boil for 60 minutes, and then we're gonna do our hop additions, so it should be good. So while this is heating up to a boil, I'm gonna get my cleaning solution ready. The cleaning solution is gonna be important for like the fermentation part of the process. Everything has to be extremely clean, extremely sanitized. Nothing with bacteria can enter, you know, the area of that solution. So it's very important to make sure that cleanliness is your top priority. So I have 2.5 gallons. I'm gonna use 1/2 ounce of Star San here. It's warm-ish water, not hot water though. Just pouring it in, making that up. And then I'm gonna put everything in it. I use this thing, this Pyrex thing. I use it for just like various tasks as throughout brewing. And I'll definitely use it during the fermentation part of the process, so I'm just gonna throw that in there. Even our yeast from Escarpment Labs, the bag itself just goes right in. This thing has to be totally sanitized. The scissors that open up the bag of yeast are gonna go in there. And then this is our equipment for our fermenter. So I'm gonna throw all this in there. And later I'm gonna put that in that Pyrex thing. And then this is our fermenter here as well. So I'm gonna use this later. I don't really need to fill it up right now because we have like an hour boil still to go. But basically what I'll do is I'll fill this up like half full, give it a good shake, and make sure this is extremely clean prior to transferring our delicious beer into this thing. All right, so we just got up to our boil. We're at about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It's rolling here. Typically with different beer styles, you would add hops throughout the boil, but because we want that real low bitterness of 0, we're not gonna add any hops at all. We're gonna wait till the whirlpool to do that, and I'll show you that when we get there. But during the boil, what we're gonna do is with 15 minutes left, we're gonna add a Wurflock tablet, and we're also gonna add our heat exchanger to make sure it's decontaminated. And the way we're gonna do that is by surrounding it with boiling water, which is right in here. And in the meantime, I'm gonna weigh out our hop additions. Okay, so today we're using a hop called Arthur. It's exclusively grown in the Bickle Farm, which is in Port Hope in Ontario. It's a dual purpose hop, gives off these earthy, floral, and sweet fruit aromas, like juicy fruit gum almost. It's a really good hop. I've used it before and I really dig it. I think it's gonna be perfect for this edition. Now we're gonna add these hops in. I'm gonna add them into the hop basket, which I forgot to add earlier, but I just threw it in about 5 minutes ago. So yeah, I like to keep a hop basket here. It just helps like not, there's a pump on this and like it recirculates. I just don't wanna get like, you know, all the particulate from the hops running through that. So I like to use a hop basket, keep it contained. So now our hop addition is complete. We got our basket in there. We got a tube in here that's gonna help recirculate this while we do the whirlpool. Help get a little bit of flow going. So I'm gonna turn this on. Whoa, jumped up a little bit. All good, my babies. But basically what we're gonna do is try to get this recirculating a bit, get a little bit of action in there. I know there's things you can buy where basically it goes, the pipe work goes right to the bottom and then juts out to the side. I gotta get something like that because it'll really help with the whirlpool edition, help it circulate, really get the hops moving around in there. But yeah, we're gonna leave this for about 20 minutes and then we're gonna come back to it and start cooling it down to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and turn on the cold water, get it running through the cooling jacket and cool it down. We wanna cool it down to about 68 degrees Fahrenheit because that's what the Vermont ale usually works best at. Now that we're cool, I'm gonna open the valve and I'm gonna transfer it to the fermentation bucket and fill it up before I oxygenate it and add the yeast. Little oxygenation, little yeast addition, we're good to go. Now we're into the good stuff. Pouring up that delicious offering that you work so hard for, the payoff. But there's a few important steps between filling up your fermentation bucket and tapping the keg. Once we added the yeast, we stored the beer in a cool, dark location for 14 days. This allows the yeast to convert all those sugars into alcohol. Once the fermentation process is complete, we transfer the beer to a keg, pressurized it, and voila, we have 30 is the new 20. Nice. Cheers. First beer that we made together? Nailed it. What do you think? I get a little bit of like sweet fruit aroma. Why are you drinking it? It's good. I think it's delicious. There's like some tropical fruit and then some like floral, a little bit of floral to it as well. It's like juicy fruit, you know, just like I think that's from the Arthur hops there. But it's nice. So it came in at, what was it here? Whoops, 6.56%, because the final gravity was 1.014. No bitterness. And relatively light too. It's almost like there's a little bit of gold there, maybe like a dark gold.
It's definitely not bitter at all. No. I feel like I could slam this and not realize it's 6.5%.
We'd all realize that you slammed 6.5%.
Thanks for tuning in, friends. We hope you enjoyed the first edition of our homebrewing series, and maybe you'll make your own version of 30 is the new 20 in the near future, as you can find the full recipe in the description below. We'll catch y'all next time, but until then, stay golden.